You know what keeps me up at night? The thought that maybe, just maybe, we've been lying to ourselves all along. Society tells us there are good people and bad people. It's simple, right? Wrong. Let me tell you something that's going to shake your whole worldview. That person you're judging right now, that bad person you're thinking about, that could have been you. Yes, you heard me right. And by the time this video ends, you're going to understand exactly why that truth is both terrifying and liberating. Picture this. A newborn baby in a hospital. Clean slate, pure innocence. Now fast forward 20 years, that same person is behind bars. What happened? That's the million-dollar question we're diving into today. The answer might make you uncomfortable, but sometimes discomfort is the price of wisdom. The reality is, every single day someone's son or daughter crosses a line they swore they'd never cross. Every single day, a good person makes a choice that transforms them into what society labels as bad. The transformation is so subtle, so gradual, that they don't even see it coming. And here's the kicker. Understanding this process isn't just about them, it's about you. You see, when we talk about whether bad people are born or made, we're not just having some philosophical debate. We're talking about the choices that shape destinies. We're talking about the moments that define character. And most importantly, we're talking about the power that lies within every single one of us to choose our path. Throughout history, we've seen saints turn to sinners and sinners become saints. The line between good and bad isn't carved in stone, it's drawn in sand, constantly shifting with every choice we make. The Stoic philosophers understood this better than anyone. They knew that character isn't inherited like eye color, it's built decision by decision, moment by moment. When we look at what makes someone bad, we need to understand something fundamental. Environment shapes behavior more than we'd like to admit. Think about water for a moment. Pure, clean water straight from a mountain spring. That's how we all start. But what happens when you pour that water through dirty pipes? When you expose it to toxins? The water doesn't choose to become contaminated, but that's exactly what happens. Now, this doesn't mean we're all just victims of our circumstances. The Stoics taught us about personal responsibility, about the power of choice. But here's where it gets interesting. Those choices don't happen in a vacuum. They're influenced by the people around us, the situations we face, and the tools we're given to handle life's challenges. Consider this. Studies show that children who grow up in environments filled with violence are more likely to become violent themselves, not because they were born bad, but because that's the language they learned to speak. That's the toolkit they were handed. Remember, and this is crucial, knowing this isn't about making excuses. It's about understanding the mechanism so we can break the cycle. The truth that nobody wants to face is that we're all capable of both tremendous good and unimaginable evil. It's not about some genetic predisposition to crime or kindness. It's about the thousands of tiny decisions we make every single day. Each choice is like a brick in the wall of our character, and we're all building something whether we realize it or not. Let's talk about something real for a moment. When you see someone commit a terrible act, your first instinct might be to think, I could never do that. But that's exactly what the Stoics warned us about. The danger of pride, the illusion of immunity. Because the real truth is, under the right, or rather the wrong circumstances, any one of us could lose our way. The most dangerous lie we tell ourselves is that we're immune to corruption, that somehow we're different from those who've fallen. But that's not what history shows us. That's not what psychology teaches us. Every major atrocity in human history wasn't committed by monsters. It was committed by ordinary people who justified their actions, one small compromise at a time. What turns a person bad isn't some dramatic movie moment where they suddenly decide to embrace evil. It's the slow erosion of principles. It's the quiet justifications we make when we're tired, stressed, or afraid. It's saying just this once, and then finding that line keeps moving. The Stoics understood this. They knew that character isn't built in moments of crisis. It's built in the mundane moments, in the daily choices. This brings us to the crucial question. If bad people are made, not born, what's the antidote? The answer lies in understanding that character is like a muscle. It needs consistent training, regular maintenance, and most importantly, it needs awareness. You can't strengthen what you don't acknowledge. You can't fix what you refuse to see. The ancient Stoics had a practice called the evening review, where they'd examine their actions at the end of each day. Not to beat themselves up, but to learn, to grow, to understand their triggers and weaknesses. Because here's the thing, the person who thinks they're above temptation is the most vulnerable to it. The person who acknowledges their potential for both good and evil is the one who's best equipped to choose good consistently. Think about every major scandal you've ever heard about. The politician who swore they'd never be corrupted, the religious leader who fell from grace, the trusted figure who betrayed their principles. None of them woke up one morning and decided to become what they fought against. It happened gradually through a series of compromises that seemed small at the time. The hardest truth to accept is that darkness doesn't just creep into our lives. We invite it in through the smallest of choices. Every time we ignore that voice of conscience, every time we choose convenience over character, we're laying the groundwork for bigger compromises. The path to moral corruption isn't a cliff you fall off, it's a gentle slope you slide down, barely noticing the descent. But here's where hope enters the picture. Just as negative habits and environments can shape someone toward destructive behavior, positive influences and conscious choices can guide them toward light. The same mechanisms that can corrupt can also redeem. This isn't just philosophical theory. We see it in rehabilitation programs, in transformed lives, in people who've faced their darkness and chosen a different path. The Stoics teach us that true strength isn't about being incorruptible. It's about being aware of our corruptibility and choosing differently anyway. It's about understanding that each day presents us with countless small moments where we either strengthen or weaken our character. The person checking out at the store who gets too much change back, the opportunity to take credit for someone else's work, the chance to spread a rumor that would hurt a rival. What makes this truth so hard to face is that it places the responsibility squarely on our shoulders. We can't hide behind the comfort of saying, some people are just born bad. Instead, we have to acknowledge that our character is shaped by our choices, and those choices are influenced by our environment, our habits, and our daily practices. The good news is that this means change is possible. The challenging news is that it requires constant vigilance. Consider how many times you've caught yourself making excuses for small ethical lapses. Everyone does it. It's not that big a deal. Just this once. These are the whispers that precede the fall. These are the subtle compromises that, accumulated over time, can transform a person's character. The difference between those who maintain their integrity and those who lose it often comes down to their response to these small moments. The power lies in understanding that transformation works both ways. Just as a person can be shaped toward destructive behavior, they can also be guided toward redemption. The key is consciousness, being aware of our choices and their implications. Every time you choose integrity when dishonesty would be easier, you're strengthening your character. Every time you choose kindness when cruelty would be more satisfying, you're building resilience against moral corruption. What's fascinating about the Stoic perspective is that it doesn't just focus on avoiding bad behavior. It emphasizes the active cultivation of virtue. They understood that the absence of bad isn't enough. We must actively pursue good. It's like a garden. It's not enough to just pull weeds. You need to plant flowers. You need to nurture growth. The same applies to character development. We can't just avoid being bad. We must actively choose to be good. The most powerful tool we have against moral corruption is community. The people we surround ourselves with, the values we collectively uphold, the standards we set, these create the environment that either supports or undermines our character. When we understand this, we realize that we're not just responsible for our own moral development, but we also play a role in others' journeys. Every interaction is an opportunity to either strengthen or weaken someone's resolve to be better. Here's something that might surprise you. The moment you accept that bad people are made, not born, you actually become more compassionate. Not because you excuse harmful behavior, but because you understand the process that leads to it. This understanding doesn't diminish responsibility. If anything, it increases it. Because now we know that character is a choice, and we make that choice every single day in countless small moments. The journey of character development isn't about reaching some perfect state where you're immune to temptation or corruption. It's about building awareness and resilience. It's about understanding your weaknesses so you can guard against them. It's about recognizing the small compromises before they become big ones. Most importantly, it's about accepting that this is a lifelong journey, not a destination. The most empowering aspect of understanding that bad people are made, not born, is realizing that positive change is always possible. Every single day presents a new opportunity to strengthen your character, to make better choices, to influence others positively. The path to virtue isn't about perfection, it's about progression. about making more conscious choices today than you did yesterday. Our greatest responsibility isn't just avoiding becoming what we fear, but actively becoming what we admire. Every person who's ever inspired you, every leader who's shown true integrity, every individual who's maintained their principles under pressure, they weren't born that way. They were shaped by their choices, their habits, their responses to daily challenges. And you have that same potential within you. The Stoic truth about character development is both challenging and liberating. It's challenging because it means we can't blame our nature for our failings. It's liberating because it means we're not bound by our past, our circumstances, or even our previous choices. Each moment offers a new opportunity to choose differently, to be better, to strengthen our character through conscious decision-making. In a world that often seems to be losing its moral compass, understanding this truth becomes even more crucial. We're not passive observers in the story of good and evil. We're active participants. Every choice we make either strengthens or weakens the moral fabric of our society. Every interaction either lifts people up or pulls them down. The responsibility is enormous, but so is the opportunity. Remember, the question isn't whether bad people are born or made. The real question is what kind of person you're choosing to become, choice by choice, day by day. Your character isn't determined by your genes, your past, or your circumstances. It's determined by the choices you make right now, and the ones you'll make tomorrow. You know, we've just scratched the surface of this life-changing truth, and I can see it in your eyes. You're starting to understand just how powerful this knowledge really is. But understanding isn't enough. What matters is what you do with this knowledge starting right now, today. If this message hit home, if it made you think differently about the choices you make and the person you're becoming, then you need to be part of this community. Hit that subscribe button right now. Not tomorrow, not later, right now. Because every single week we're diving deep into these truths that nobody else wants to talk about. These real conversations that can transform your life.